Hello guys, this is just one guy and this is my tutorial series Unity for Noobs. Now in this episode we continue on with the multi-platform RPG project, and this one is going to take a bit of time. I know I usually put up videos every day, but I had to take some time to figure out how I was going to do this, and it was a little bit more complicated than I thought in C#, and I apologize for that. But we're going to start building our character today, and we're going to work on the movement class. Now the way I like to work on characters is because it's easier if you build a player character and an enemy character with the same scripts instead of doing it separate. That way it's just a lot easier to deal with. So I have a basic character script that we're going to make today, and that's going to be what's going to hold everything for anything that's a character. And what's going to make them different from a character and an enemy is the player will have their player controller script, and the enemy will have the enemy controller script. Now within this character script, we're going to create a bunch of classes. Today we're only going to create the move class, and we're going to deal with all the things that we need for movement. Now I've already written this movement script out just to show you what it does already, and this is going to be all the variables we need. First we need a transform because we're starting a new class, so it doesn't have you can't access the transform in a normal way, and that's why it has transform right here. Then we're going to need the true speed. This isn't important for this tutorial, but it'll be important for future tutorials. And what the true speed is, we might change the speed, like the character gets debuffed or something and we want to slow it down, and we always want to have a variable to hold the true speed and also the true stopping distance, because the stopping distance for the character is going to change depending on what they're doing. This is the point that the character wants to move to in case we want to access that information, which sometimes we do. And then we have the distance from where the character is trying to travel to, and that'll tell us how close we are to what we're trying to get to. Then we have the agent, which is of course the nav mesh agent, and then we have the move state. And what the move state does is it has a bunch of different states, and I'll go over that when I get into the script because it's easier to explain because it's commented out. And then in the character scripts, not in the move class, we have these two variables right here, is player and is enemy. And then we have the test speed. Now this is just a test right here. We're going to remove this probably in the next tutorial, but this is just to show you how it works. And we're going to have to change some things around in our character pretest script, and we're going to have to write a move class script. Now you're going to have to create 3 scripts, and what you're going to have to, wait a minute, 2 scripts, apologize. You're going to have to create a character script, and you're going to have to create a movement class script. Now first we're going to go over the character script. Okay, it just instantiates a new class. Well, yeah, we should start with the move class script because it'll be easier that way. Okay, now our move class script, it isn't going to come from mono behavior. It's going to be its own separate thing. So the first thing we're going to do is delete that right there, and we're going to delete the start and update functions because we don't need them anymore. And the first thing we got to do is put system.serializable up there, and what that does is it allows you to see the script in the inspector. Otherwise you wouldn't be able to see it in the inspector. And that just helps because some of the functions we're going to put in here, they're just information functions to give us more information about the character, and we want to see them inside the inspector. Serializable. Yeah. And let's see what we have next. The transform, as I was going over before. Since this class doesn't come from mono behavior, it's not going to have a automatic transform thing in here. Excuse me. So just write a public transform and transform. Let's get that out of the way. Next we need our true speed, which again isn't important for this tutorial, but it'll be important in later tutorials when we start changing around the speed. And that's going to be kind of a messed up right there. That's going to be kind of a theme with this tutorial. but I've done a lot of this movement, these character movement things, and a lot of this stuff we're putting in now is going to save us a lot of trouble later. Next is the stopping distance, which is the same. We're actually going to be changing the stopping distance in this one, but not in the way you think. And the reason we specifically changed the stopping distance because let me give you an example in here. If we wanted the character to move to a point, we want him to move exactly to that point. So we want that stopping distance to be 0. But let me just duplicate him for a second. Control D. If we wanted him to move to a character, we don't want his stopping distance to be 0 because we don't want him to stop on the character. We want him to stop like before the character. And so that's when we'll start changing around the stopping distance, and that's why that's important. And then we got the point we want to move to, which will be a vector 3. And at certain points we want to access that point. So let me see, point to move to. That'll be information that we'll definitely need later. Let me just make sure I named it right. Point to move to. Yeah, I believe I did, but just in case. Next we have our distance from point, which is the distance to the point we're trying to move to, and that'll definitely come in handy later. What would that be? That was that outfloat. Yeah, what we're trying to tell is the character at the point or not, or if we want to do some type of area of effect spells or something like that. It's just a handy thing to have, and best to put into the movement class right now when we're just starting off, rather than later when it might actually be trouble. Okay, we got that. Next is the nav mesh agent, of course, because that's how we're moving the character. Nav mesh agent, and we're just going to name that agent for short. Ooh, agent for short. And now the move state. Okay, what the move state is it tells whether the character is moving or it's at the target point. And that's just what it does right now, and it's just the int. If it's at 1, then we know the character is currently moving to a position. If it's at 2, which I meant to put right here, just put that right now. If it's at 2, then the character is at its target point and it doesn't need to move anymore. And this will be important for 2 reasons. For one, when the character gets to its point, we don't want to be calling the move function anymore, just for the sake of saving computing power. You don't want to be calling it over and over again, and that might not seem too important now when you just have one player, but if you want to put something like, I don't know, 100 NPCs on the screen or something, that does become really important when you're trying to save calculation power. And so that's one reason it's used for. Another thing it's used for is just like general stuff where you want to, I don't know, it just comes in handy to have, and best to calculate it right now rather than putting it in later. And I put it as a int just in case we need to add more states, and it also makes it so the character can't be in more than one state at once, rather than just using bools and typing out like 100 of them as the states are needed, and then using if and statements, which would be long. The next one is public void to set speed. Now again, this won't come in handy in this one, but since this is an RPG, we're going to do things like level up the speed and change the speed if the character gets debuffed, or increase the speed if the character gets a buff. And for that, we just need set speed, and we want something specifically to change the speed across all the different scripts that it needs to change across. Now the thing about this is, sorry, not only will it change the speed on one platform like just the Android, but it will change it across everything, every platform, even if you use a controller. Now we'll have to balance this out later with the controller and everything like that, but it should be balanced right now. Oh, wrong script. we got to make it public so we can access it from the mono development character script that we're going to call it from. I can't believe I need to look that up, but I might as well copy it while I'm here just to make sure I get the name right. Void set speed, and what it's going to take is the speed we want to set it to, which, let me just make sure I name that right. Temp speed, and we're going to need the character script, because the character script is what we're going to be where we're going to be calling this function from. Well, not the character script is in here because when it changes the controller speed, it has to change the it has to check if the character is a player. I forgot about that. And then that's how it changes the controller speed, because we're going to use this for NPC, well, enemy and a player. So that's why we have the character is player, and I'll go that in the character script, but that's why it needs it to check if it's a player or not. And we're just going to name this character. And we're going to change the agent speed to the temp speed. And we're going to say if character dot is player, because if it's the enemy, then it won't have the player controller script. So that's why we got to make that check first. And this was one of the reasons we had to transform, just so we can access it and get components. And we're going to say player controller. Dot, I believe it's move speed equals temp speed. And that'll change the controller. That'll change the speed of the controller when the character is moving. So the character can move faster when you're using a controller, or slower depending on how you're using this function. Okay, let's see the next one we got. The stop distance. Now the stop distance is just changing stopping distance based on what we need it for. And I went over that before, so we'll just write it out. Public void. Let me just hit OK on that. Public void. Set stop, I believe it was, right? Yeah, stop distance. I probably should be naming these functions better, but whatever. And what did I have it take? Oh, the float, the stop distance, we want to make it stop. And we're just going to say this. And we're going to say is agent dot stopping distance equals this. And that's it for that. Clean that up a little bit. And what's the next one? Is to get the target distance, and this just gets the the distance from the player to the point that we want to travel to. But since we're going to be using this script for enemies too, it'll get the distance from the enemy to the point it wants to travel to. And this could be used in anything to get the distance of how far an enemy is away to how far a point is away. And one thing it'll be useful for is, say you wanted to use a range attack and you want to know how far you had to travel before you can get to a certain range. It'll be useful for things like that. So public void, let's just copy the name directly. And let me see what it took. A target, which was a vector 3, which is the point of the enemy, or the point of whatever point we're traveling to. And if I remember correctly, it was the distance to point equals vector3 dot distance, and vector3 dot distance takes to vector3's the point, and in this case it's going to be our transform position that we're at, and it's going to be the target, which is the vector3 of the enemy or whatever point we're traveling to. The next function is going to be calculate move info, and this is just going to basically call this function right here to calculate the distance. It'll call more functions later on when I upgrade the script, but right now we just want to calculate the distance, and this will allow us to calculate it for just give us a function where we can calculate all our move stuff from the character script. It also calculates the state that the move state that the player should be in, or the character in this case should be in. And you can see it says well, I'll go over it in a minute. We're about to write the script. I need to go over it twice and make this even longer than it has to be. Let's just copy the name, calculate move info. Ooh, I put it in the wrong place. And basically we're just going to call this function right here. Wait, did I write it that way? I forgot a variable up here. That's why we had the point to move to. Public vector3, which I have forgot. So point to move to, and that's the point that we want to move to. And if we're chasing if we have an enemy target, that point is going to be the enemy itself, which will allow us to track the enemy. But that's what we have to put right here, and we'll get the distance from us to the point we want to move to. And it might be an enemy, it might be just a random space, but it will give us the distance. And now we just say if, ooh, wrong space, if, what was it, if distance from point is greater than stopping distance, if distance to point is greater than, I want it as the greater sign, right? I always get those two signs confused. Okay, if the distance to point is greater than the agent.stopping distance, which we're setting both of those so we'll know what it is, then the character is moving to its point, so the move state has to be 1. And if it's not, if the distance is lower or equal to the stopping distance, then clearly the character has reached this point, and the move state will be 2, which means the character the character is at its point. Is that for the movement? Is that it for the movement class? I believe so. I don't know why I'm getting an error right here. Oh, I did already write it out. I thought I missed it. Oops. I wrote it out double. I wrote it right here. I thought I missed it. I didn't even recognize that. Okay, let's move on to the character script. Now the character script is gonna come from mono behavior, so it's gonna have all the mono behavior stuff in there. And the first thing we want to do is create our movement class. This took me a while to figure out because in Java, in Uniscript, you can just write the class and it'll automatically do all this, but in C# you have to explicitly say this, that we want to instantiate a new class. Move equals new class. Ooh, is it new class? No, it's new movement class. Apologies. new movement class, and that's how we get the movement class into our character script. Now the first var we need, the first variable we need is to tell whether this is a player or enemy. So we say is player. Forgot to write bool right there. And then we say is it an enemy, just so we know which one it is. Now normally I would do this by checking tags, but it's just a lot easier to do it this way. And when we go online, we're going to need it this way anyway, because the tag way isn't going to work. And we have our test speed, which is purely for testing. We're going to remove this right in the next tutorial, but just to use some of the functions right now and show you how they work, we're going to use the test speed. Now we have to write our first function, which is set up the character. And this is just going to set up the character in the beginning of the game. We want to get all our variables in order and stuff like that. So set up character. I know I put that wrong. Fix that right there. And what we have to get is the nav. We have to assign the nav mesh agent in the move script, and then transform in the move script, and we want to set our speed to a basic speed, which we're going to use the test speed for. So let's get to it. We call our move class right there, and we want the agent, and it equals transform dot get component nav mesh agent. Oops. Agent, wrote that wrong. And the second one, we want to access our move class again. Transform equals our transform. And the third one is just going to be to set the speed. So we move dot set speed, and we set it up to take a temporary speed and our character script. So we're just going to put the test speed for now. We're going to change that later to a basic speed that we want to set it to at the beginning of the game. And since we want the character script, which will basically be this. Now, I'm writing just a test script here, so I'm not going to put this. That's what I would put right there, because we would be writing the actual character script. But since I already wrote the character script and this is just a demonstration, I'm going to put get component character. I forgot the extra one right there. Okay, now we have to call it when we first set up the game. So we put it in the start function to call it. And now we have the character updater. Now the character updater is when I write the character scripts like this, I notice that certain variables and certain functions within the character need to be updated continuously. And I don't want to call update from multiple scripts. I only want to call update from one script, because when you call update for one script, it saves on a lot of computing power. Because if you're calling it up for multiple scripts, it'll call update multiple times for one character, which you don't need. You only want to call it one time. So I put the character updater, and then I want to call the character updater in the player controller script if it's a player, and the enemy controller script if it's an enemy. So that's why we have that right there. And let's just write it out. Erase this, because we don't need this update right here. We're not going to update over here. We're going to update the player controller. So public void character updater. And what we're going to put is what we need to update right now is just the info in our move script, calculate move info. and it'll be calculating even when it's off. Now later on we're going to set this up to only calculate when we need it to, but right now, since it's not really an issue of saving too much computing power, we're just going to let it run all throughout the character. And I believe that's it for our character script. Now our player controller script. I don't think I need to write this one out because I only changed a couple of things. I just put the character right here. I'll write it out just for the sake of doing it. Public. This is going to be in our player controller script, and we just need to access the character, and in this script we're going to call it character with a lowercase. And right here in the start function, this is where we assign the character. Dot get component character, which was already written right here, and where is it? Right here we had our old set destination script. Now we don't need that anymore, so when you see destination right here, what you want to do is just delete it and instead write the character. Let me just write it out. The character. Did I write that? No, I didn't write that right. Was it character? And then we're going to access the move class, and then we're going to access the move to point. And you can see that takes a vector 3, and that's going to be our updated move function. And then it's going to take the same variables as before, the ray get point dot ray distance, which returns a vector 3. And you also want to change it for the Android touch screen, which will be right here. Just to highlight that, we've already written it out, and so now that one isn't going to take the ray. Instead it's going to take the touch ray because it's two different rays. So instead of, if you copy and paste that, don't put ray right there, put touch ray just for that one right there. But you can always just download the script from the description down below in case you get confused. And I think that's all we changed in player controller. Just make sure. Yep, that's it. That's all we changed. Let's go back to the game. Wait for it to compile. Come on. Okay. Now you can see right here I've written I've gotten a little further and written some of the classes out when I was figuring out how I was going to do it. And I've also created this new folder, character classes, just to put all the character stuff in, just so I could make it a little better organizational wise. But now you want to go to the player. I'm just gonna delete this for right. Wait, do I? No, I do need that, but I'll set it up again just to show you. We're gonna put our character show. That's gonna be a script that we just wrote. We're gonna click is character. Now for our test speed, we want to test it at 99. This is interesting because even though we set it to 99, the character isn't going to move too crazy. And we're going to put the player test controller on it. Ooh, nope, wrong script. That's the player script we just wrote. And as you can see, the character script now shows the movement class in the inspector. Just make sure I set everything right. Okay. And we're on the PC, so we want to do that. And since this is an older player controller script, we're putting the camera third person in, because it's not going to get it automatically, because this isn't named, this player controller script is named different from that one. So it isn't going to set it up automatically, because this is the player controller script I just used for showing you how to write the script. that's why I have to set everything up in that one. I would use the regular one, which is up here, but I got a little further ahead and I wrote some things in it that's going to be in future tutorials that I didn't want to write out yet. Okay, let's hit play and hope everything works. And something went immediately wrong. Let's see what our error is. You seem to have 2 errors, and this is the first one. Let's see if using controller, blah blah blah. Huh. What did I do wrong? Is player on PC. Ooh, I don't know what I clicked wrong here. Let's just check it. Huh. I don't know why that's giving me an error. Let me just pause it and check it real quick. Okay guys, sorry, I had to restart that. I'm back. I figured out what the problem is. The script is actually set up to work with the character script and not the character show script. The character show script is the script I use for showing you how to write the scripts, and that's the problem right there. So we're just going to have to remove that and put the actual character script on there. Which is in here. Oops. Now click is player. Now it should work, hopefully. I'm praying. Okay. I almost forgot something. We wanted our test speed to be 99. And everything is working. So you can see that it'll show you the distance to where you have to go. I mean to where you're trying to get to. Your move point is here. Ooh. And everything is good. You have all your movement information. The character moves properly, and it'll change speed across all the platforms. And that's it for our movement.